Good evening. I'm Ann Wall, the Executive Director of the South Dakota Humanities Council.
And I'm Jennifer Widman. I'm the Director of the South Dakota Center for the Book at the Humanities Council.
We want to welcome you to our virtual 2020 Festival of Books. The South Dakota Humanities Council is part of the National Endowment for the Humanities. It was established by Congress in 1965, and each state has a Humanities Council and works to provide valuable humanities leadership for its peoples. The mission statement of the South Dakota Humanities Council is threefold. We celebrate literature, we promote civil conversation, and we tell the stories that define our state. I think the Festival of Books answers all three of these elements, and I'd like to take a look at those quickly. First of all, we celebrate literature. We have over 60 authors that join in the Festival of Books. From children's picture books to young adult books to adult literature, we cover a wide range of genres and ages of literature. Basically, there's a plethora of literary choices. Second, we also promote civil conversation through the work we do at the Festival of Books. We convey lessons of history, both personal and societal. We provide a forum to think about and discuss many ideas framed in literature. The sum outcome of the many authors and books lead to a breadth and depth of thoughts. Third, at the Festival of Books, we tell stories that define our state. Not only do we have authors from South Dakota who can tell stories that help us to see ourselves, but the national and international authors that are part of the festival provide further ways to understand our lives. Promoting excellence in our interchanges is the sum part of how this all works together. The South Dakota Humanities Council warmly welcomes you to this Humanities Forum of thoughts, ideas, and stories, and we hope that it has meaning for you.
Thank you, Anne. And I just want to talk a little bit about what's happening this year with the Festival of Books. The Festival of Books has been going on since 2003, so this is our 18th annual festival, but it's the first one we've ever tried to do in a virtual way. Of course, due to the pandemic, we felt that it wasn't safe for us to gather. So we want to bring literature, books, and good conversations to you in other ways, virtually through your screen from wherever you are. You will find that we have the same high quality of authors, we have the same breadth of topics, and we have all of the same great conversations that we normally do. It's just coming to you in a different format. So this year, you will be watching many of your sessions on Zoom, just as you are right now, and you will have a chance to interact with the authors that you see, and you'll be able to ask them questions. The only thing you won't be able to do is to shake their hands and to get them to sign a book, but we think it's going to be a really valuable experience, and we're really glad that you're joining us. So even though we are virtual this year, we would like to acknowledge first and foremost that this festival comes to you from ground which is Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota homeland. We honor and appreciate the Indigenous people who have the longest relationship to this place. We would love to be with you in person this year, right here in Brookings, where we have our office, which is where we're coming to you from tonight. But because the pandemic has made that impossible, we're happy to welcome you virtually, and so is Brookings Mayor Keith Corbett.
Hello, I'm Keith Corbett, and I'm the Brookings Mayor. And on behalf of the City of Brookings, we are so excited to get to join you on the Festival of Books virtually. As an education advocate and a lifelong learner myself, I can't tell you how excited these opportunities are for us to live and grow and learn from each other. What a marvelous opportunity. And I'm just so proud that Brookings is allowed to be an integral part of this. If you'll notice the letter that I wrote in the welcome pamphlet, you might have noticed that on the top it says, "Bring your dreams." And people always say, wow, what a great tagline. But in Brookings, bring your dreams is more than a tagline. It's a belief and a way of life. And so as we enjoy all of our great authors, please let us all grow and bring our dreams together. Thank you.
The South Dakota Humanities Council really appreciates the support of the City of Brookings that it gives to our festival. And now we'd like to introduce you to the people who help produce this event, as well as managing our grant programs, sharing scholars and discussion leaders around the state, and more.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Speakman. I've been with the Humanities Council for just about 10 years. I am the office manager, so I am the first person you will see when you come in the door and likely the first person to answer the phone.
Good evening. My name is Deb Delaney, and I'm the Programs and Data Coordinator. I work primarily with the Speakers Bureau, and we connect humanities scholars with host organizations as speakers and workshop and discussion leaders, and sometimes actors and musicians if they have a strong focus in the humanities in their performances. I also maintain our database. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Storey, and I'm the Development Coordinator. I generally work with our staff and community to support the Council's programming, operations, and fundraising goals. You can also find me out in the community, sharing education and ideas about how the Council can continue to enrich the lives of South Dakotans.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Woodard. I do communications and marketing. So I, excuse me, I do all of the marketing materials that you see online on our website.
My name is Melinda Berdanier, and I am the grants coordinator here. And each year we award approximately $75,000 for humanities programming across our state. And our next grant deadline is coming up on October 15th, and we are encouraging some virtual programs if that's your idea. So put on your thinking caps and come up with some great ideas and get those applications in by October 15th.
Thank you very much, staff. We consider ourselves a team, and we are so happy that we work with such wonderful people here who have made every part of this festival possible. Thank you very much again. Before we welcome our first author, I'd like to share some housekeeping details which will hold true for all festival events. If you'd like to ask questions or share comments with us tonight, please type them in the chat section on Zoom, which you can open by clicking on the conversation bubble at the bottom of your screen or in the comments section on Facebook. We also want you to know that you can buy books by our presenting authors at Zanbro's Varieties Special Online Festival Bookstore, zanbros.com, and for children's authors at Child's Play Toys website, which is childsplaytoyssf.com. You'll find buttons at the SouthDakotaBookFestival.com that will take you directly to our booksellers, and we'll also include the links in the chat. If you want to plan your festival attendance like you usually do on our grid schedule, you can find a downloadable, printable PDF on our event schedule page. That's also the page where you can scroll through our chronological schedule and access festival events when they go live by clicking on the Join Event Now button. You can even sort that schedule by date, time, and presenter to make a list of exactly the sessions that you want to see.
Another great opportunity on our website might be especially valuable for children and all the grown-ups in their lives, teachers, librarians, parents, and others. And that is our series of 7 pre-recorded videos with children's book authors and illustrators. You can find them on our Young Readers page. At SD Book Festival, click the Young Readers tab. And now, on with the show. This evening's first featured speaker is Patrick Hicks. He is the author of In the Shadow of Dora, Library of the Mind, and The Collector of Names, among others. His work has appeared on NPR, the PBS NewsHour, and American Life in Poetry. And his first novel, The Commandant of Lubezek, was selected for the National Reading Group Month. Hicks is the writer-in-residence at Augustana University and a faculty member in the MFA program at Sierra Nevada University. He lives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and hosts the popular radio show Poetry from Studio 47. And we welcome Patrick tonight to share some poetry and other thoughts with us.
Hi, Jennifer and Ann. How are you? I suspect you can hear me, but I'm still waiting for the video to be cleared. So I think they're working on that.
Patrick.
You can hear me?
We can. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, how about, because my video is ready to go, I think it needs to be opened on your end. So should I just start reading some poetry?
We'd be glad to have you do that. Thank you.
Okay. I'll try it one more time on my end. And there's always a glitch in one program, and I am it. Everything else will be wonderful. Well, thank you so much. It's really wonderful to be a part of the book festival. I don't even know how many times I've been a part of the book festival now, but it's this annual literary feast, and I'm just so pleased to be here. And thank you for hosting it and for allowing it to happen online so that we aren't missing out on anything. I thought I would read 6 different poems, and I thought, there I am. I can see I'm up now. Here I am. So I thought I'd read 6 different poems. They're from my new and selected book, The Library of the Mind. And the first 3 poems I've chosen, I've done so intentionally because they either deal with books or words or telling stories. So the first three poems all seem like they're wonderfully related to what we're going to be doing over the next several weeks with the book festival. So I'm going to start with Library of the Mind. What happens to our memories when the great pulse stops? Is it like a candle tipping over in Alexandria, the papyrus of our lives just blackened smoke? Or do we ascend into a library, one with a glass dome, wingback chairs, each book a garden of ink? In this afterworld, librarians mend broken spines. They point to shelves of light and store our pain deep down in the basement, down where the spiders grow. Dictionaries are swollen, plump, ripe with energy. Only one word is censored, that 4-lettered obscenity, shh. So we author ourselves, turning the heavy pages, the calligraphy of our souls scratched into wood pulp and rags. Our stories may not be written to last, but let us embrace the unknown. Let us open our arms like a book. And the next poem, speaking of books, is called Dictionary. And I got inspired by this. I love the city of London. And Samuel Johnson was this a really well-known writer in the 1700s. And he published in 1755 a dictionary of the English language. It's not the first dictionary of the English language, but it certainly is the most famous. So this is simply called Dictionary in honor of Samuel Johnson's Dictionary of English. Back during the gin craze of the 1700s, when colonial bounty was stacked across London, Samuel Johnson felt words flow around him. His bulk, like an O, buoyed him in pubs and palaces. Syllables broke against the gunwale of his ear. A book was planned, and his amanuenses, they entered that word on page 3, flapped open a great net of ink. Johnson hunched at his desk like a sea and sorted speech into kingdoms. For years, he stood like a Y, directing traffic, shepherding words into their stalls, everything from aardvark to zebra. When Johnson's great ship of a book was finally launched into public thought, his black manservant, Frank Barber, picked up the middle passage of words that he had helped to quill. He looked up words like empire and independence and slave. This freeman knew the power of connotation. He stood as rigid and as proper as a capital I, and he insisted that the word abolition be included so the world could see it, chained on page 1. And my final poem, that's dedicated to the idea of books and to words, pays tribute to the fact that we are in South Dakota. And I'm here at Augustana University, and we have a winter count in our Center for Western Studies. And a winter count is that's a Lakota and Dakota tradition that every year you would put a little icon to commemorate the year. And this winter count goes back for scores of years. And it is a book, essentially. It's a history book of life with the Lakota. So this is Winter Counts. Before the white man came and churched them with the alphabet, Lakota elders rolled out the buffalo skin to take stock of the previous year. These winter counts, these pictures, these glyphs marked the most crucial event, a prompt to twitch the tongue of oral history. In this museum, looking at this stretched buffalo hide, I interpret the obvious. A woman with a bloated belly, fox pelts, a bear on the ground, horse heads with arrows, a trailing star. I imagine the bark rough face of a storyteller reaching down through 2 centuries for the roots of memory. He communes with the dead, the ones that sharpened porcupine quills and inked the story forward. Near the bottom of this musky pelt, year after year is counted by little boxes, little shut windows. They are as confining as a prison. The museum plaque next to this framed skin tells me that the land allotments have begun. The year is 1870. But when these winter counts are read backwards, the buffalo multiply, prairie schooners are driven away, and the land stakes are replanted with bur oaks. Back further, this buffalo skin rises up, gathers its insides, its muscular rigging, and snorts hot breath into the morning air. It gallops into the grass, where the future is still unwritten, where the hunter has yet to cock his bow, close one eye, and take careful aim at what lies ahead. And the next poem I'm going to read, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. This is called Teaching the History of the Third Reich to Ninth Graders. And this poem was originally inspired by something that was supported by the South Dakota Humanities Council, where I was welcomed into a ninth grade class to talk about the history of the Third Reich. And this seems appropriate for a variety of reasons. One, thank you, SDHC. But two, also it's worth mentioning that on October 13th at 7 o'clock, I'll be presenting a lecture on the rise of the Third Reich. So maybe that's something that people might be interested in learning about. This particular poem, Teaching the History of the Third Reich to ninth graders, this happened only a day or two after the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Because I am a guest speaker, they lean in when I say such words as Untermensch, Aryan, and Shoah. I talk about how the bedrock of democracy was dynamited by jackbooted thugs, how these men raised the gallows of their arms and marched through the streets with brass knuckle and song. I teach them the word Lügenpresse, the lying press, and explain how the National Socialists use this phrase to erase facts with the acid of hate. I talk about the Nuremberg laws, broken glass, and blood. It happened fast, I say, staring at the American flag. A train somewhere in the distance bleats out at a crossing. There is the sound of heavy freight clacking. It is a metronome or something like the ticking of a bomb. I stare at these ninth graders who are just beginning to author the long pages of their lives. They are 15, as old as Anne Frank happened to be when the door of her attic world was kicked open and all that had once been safely locked outside came pouring in. I'm going to switch gears yet again, and I'm sort of mindful of the time here, so I'll read at least two more, maybe three. I suppose if I'm known for any poem, it's really this one. It's called The Strangers, and I wrote this well over a decade ago now. My wife and I adopted this amazing boy from South Korea, and he flew into Omaha, Nebraska. He was not even 1 year old, so most people go to a hospital to meet their child, but I went to Omaha at the airport with my wife, and we got a hotel room next to the airport because we were told by the adoption agency to not drive up to Sioux Falls. He'll be jet lagged and whatnot. So we got a hotel room, and the night did not go the way that I expected because our son didn't know who we were, and he was tired and terrified. So this is simply called The Strangers on the night my internationally adopted son arrived. After we picked you up at the Omaha airport, we clamped you into a new car seat and listened to you yowl beneath the streetlights of Nebraska. Our hotel suite was plump with toys, ready, we hoped, to soothe you into America. But for a solid hour, you watched the door, shrieking, "Amma," the Korean word for mother. Once or twice you glanced back at us, and in this nether world, where a door home had slammed shut forever, your terrified eyes paced between the past and the future. "Amma," you screamed, "Amma." But your foster mother back in Seoul never appeared. Your new mother and I lay on the bed, cooing your birth name until, at last, you collapsed into our arms. In time, even terror must yield to sleep. And I think, I'll do maybe 2 more poems. This next one of the things that is a joy about being a parent is just watching your child navigate through the world and learn many of the things that you yourself sort of take for granted. And it was a real joy for me as a writer and as an author to see my son acquire the English language. And whenever he learned a new English word, I wrote it down because I wanted to remember when he learned that particular word. Being adopted means that he might not know an awful lot about his past, but I thought I could record his past here with us in South Dakota. So this is a poem called Speechless, about those words and those moments when my son acquired the English language. Speechless. His tongue is greeting words that will become friends for a lifetime. Words like ball, dog, and juice. He tilts his head at please, points at trucks on the highway, and it was my own mother who taught him more. It took 15 minutes of work, but I gave him no, which in hindsight, I regret, especially when he trumpets that word around the house and runs away from me at bath time. Yes has come more slowly to him, as it does for us all. When he falls asleep in the chair of my body, I sometimes wonder about the history of my own language. How was it that words like moonlight and firmament and campfire, as ancient as petroglyphs to me now, how were these first painted onto my tongue? When my son stirs because a car backfires, I squint into his mouth and realize someone will teach him the sour words of betrayal and deceive. There will be others who give him fart and wedgie. Someone too, this will be sweet for him. Someone too will cup his face and kiss him lightly on the lips. Her words will be so humid and tropical, it will feel like a brand new language. And in this moment, I hope he is tongue-tied, dumbstruck, inarticulate, speechless. And I think the final poem I'll read, although I've got plenty more I can certainly do, but I think I'll read this final poem, is the last poem in a collection called Adoptable. This is my collected works, Library of the Mind, so all of the poems I've ever written. This is the final poem in a collection called Adoptable. And one of the things about having a child a little later in life, I'm 50 now, my son is 11 years old, I'm just looking at the arithmetic and the mathematics of biology, and I realized that I'm not going to be here for the bulk of his life. So I got to thinking about that. So this is simply called When He is an Old Man. Long after my body has been turned into ash and his own children have walked into middle age, they will eventually gather around his hospital bed. My son, an old man with papery skin, will be hooked up to an octopus of machines. Tubes will push fluid into his body, his rib cage will rise and fall, his heart will blip. He might be scared, but also content with the arc and burn of his life. I will stand at the foot of his bed, just as I did when he was a baby, watching him breathe. As nurses rush in for his final moments, I'd like to put my cool hand on his cheek and whisper into his ear that his daddy still loves him. If there is another life, I'll be waiting for him, just as I did at the Omaha airport when we first met. I'll be the one craning my neck at the new arrivals, waving my hands like crazy, ecstatic at last to welcome him home. And I think I will stop there. I've got a few more poems, but Jennifer, I'm not sure. I think you were going to ask me some questions now.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. I would love to ask you some questions, and maybe Anne will jump in as well. But thank you, first of all, for sharing that wide variety of poems with us. I think about you as a writer who writes just about every genre. You write nonfiction, you have collections of essays, you have 2 novels, so fiction. I think you've done short stories, and you've done a great deal of poetry. Do you feel like any one of those formats or genres is a better format for conveying certain kinds of ideas? Or do you feel like any idea, whether it's so personal like the poems about your son, or broader like the Third Reich, or other big world ideas, do you feel like every genre can cover any one of those? Or do you feel like there's a certain strength that poetry has and something that fiction has?
The latter. I think that poetry has a certain sort of power and place, and then fiction and nonfiction do sort of different things. And I'm really in awe and in fascination by the different modes of storytelling that happens in both. And really, we don't maybe necessarily think of poetry as storytelling, but it is storytelling, an ancient form of storytelling. And what I really love about poetry is that it's a burst of a short story. It's usually pretty immediate. It's usually present tense, although not always. And it's usually very personal to the poet. And it almost always involves like a singular sort of idea or an object or an observation. Whereas a novel is necessarily larger. I mean, obviously we have more real estate with pages, but beyond that, novels almost always deal with communities. Even if it's just one character, there's a community that surrounds that character, and there's a longer throw of the narrative that you have to consider. So I don't see one as being more important than the other. I just see it as different sort of modes of sort of making music with words. So whenever I come up with an idea, my thought process is, well, which mode of music is best for me here?
As you say that, I was thinking about the poems that you read about your son, and I'm wondering, you wrote about him with poetry. Have you also written about that relationship? Have you found that longer way to discuss him in community and other forms of writing too? Oh,
wow. I really like that question. I have with my nonfiction. I wrote something called Watching MASH, MASH, the television show, because I was so much a part of my childhood, and now, I mean, Korea seemed like this faraway place when I was a child, and now it's something that's very deeply and personally important to me, because his family is there, and it's an amazing country and an ancient culture. So I have written about that in nonfiction, and maybe one day I'll write a memoir of my relationship with my son, but I kind of feel like that's his job, to tell his story about what it's like to be Asian American. And I would rather leave that space for him to fill up when it comes to prose. But it seems to me that most of the prose that I turn to, I like telling stories, novels and things like that.
So kind of Anne's question sparked this for me. I'm thinking that your son is in his very early teens. Is that correct?
He is. He's 11 years old, and he would be absolutely mortified if he knew that these poems were being read to all these people.
Well, that sort of answers my question. I wondered how much
so don't tell him.
Yeah. Have you shared the poems with him, and has he reacted to those in any way, or would he just rather pretend that wasn't happening?
I think I think it's just he grew up with a father who's a writer, and Dad's got a new book. Okay, what's for dinner tonight? I mean, it's just not interesting, And I gave him the book that's all about him, and it's dedicated to him, and I gave it to him, and he's like, okay. And I could tell on one level he's really moved by that, but he's 11. So, my latest novel just recently came out, In the Shadow of Dora, and I gave him a copy, and I said, if you look in the acknowledgments, you'll see your name, but he didn't seem too interested in that. And I don't blame him for this. I mean, when I was a teenager, I had very little interest in what my father was doing. So
I think sometimes, though, the shadow is there and we're listening, even if it's not apparent, that maybe he'll be a writer. He certainly has someone he can learn from.
Maybe he will, and I'll be proud of him no matter what he does.
I'm wondering about taking this a little bit step further. Besides the writing that you're doing, you obviously work with students. How are you approaching writing in this particular fall semester when everything's been upended a little bit? Are there different approaches to the genres because some of them maybe are more useful at this point in time?
Yeah, I'm teaching creative nonfiction this semester, and then I'm teaching poetry over January term, and then I'm teaching fiction and introduction to creative writing in the spring. So I've had to learn just necessarily how to navigate this. And at Augustana, we're doing face-to-face classes. So, and it's a hybrid model. So if a student needs to be out of class, you know, they kind of Zoom in and I can talk to them like this, but it's a face-to-face sort of environment. And it's now normalized for me. We're all wearing our masks and everything. So I find that when we do workshops, usually we would trade, you know, pieces of paper, but it actually, what a gift this strange time has been, because now they exchange Google Docs in real time, and they can actually work in real time to repair and fix and to cut. And it's such a good system that even when we get a vaccine, I suspect I'm going to keep that. So there are, you know, opportunities with change.
Very much so, yeah. Other thing that you mentioned was you'll be giving a lecture in a couple weeks on the rise of the Third Reich. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I'll be doing that on October 13th at 7 o'clock. And this is a lecture that I've given many times. And I've been really very pleased with the turnout, and the South Dakota Humanities Council has been very generous. And I've spoken to tons of high schools and universities, you know, across the state to talk about the rise of the Third Reich. And there's always sort of an interest in how was it that Germany went from a democracy to this totalitarian, authoritarian regime. And it happened very, very quickly. It was, you know, a span of essentially 2 years that this happened. So October 13th at 7 o'clock, the lecture is usually about 40 or 45 minutes. And then my favorite part is the question and answer afterwards. I lived in Germany for a while, and the Holocaust is something that I specialize in. And in fact, right now I'm teaching a course on the Holocaust with one of my colleagues in the history department for our honors students. And just today we did a deep dive into one of the concentration camps. So it's a lecture that I enjoy giving because there's always something that surprises people.
I want to turn back a little bit to poetry to ask, because of course we mentioned and never have gotten this arranged at the festival, but we've always talked about you maybe doing something where you talked a little bit about the creation of your radio show, Studio Poetry from Studio 47. Is it 47?
It's 47, yeah.
Yeah. So where did that idea come from, and what is the goal, and you know, how have you found it?
It's called Poetry from Studio 47 because I'm at Augustana right now, and in our basement in Studio 47, there's a recording studio, you know, for our musicians. It's a place for them to go and record, you know, it's professional grade. And when I saw that a couple of years ago, I thought, wow, that'd be really fun to do a radio show. Because I've always been sort of drawn to radio, you know, maybe it would be a second career for me at some point in time. So there was the desire to do that, but I didn't have the technical know-how to do it. And then when we hired my colleague, Pete Folliard, who's currently the Dean of the School of Music here at Augustana, he knows this stuff inside and out. And when I proposed the idea to him, fortunately, he was really excited. So we then together approached the South Dakota Broadcasting, and from there, the show has been, it's been very successful in far as, you know, audience seems to enjoy it. And we are rapidly approaching 2 years on the air now. And I'm having a ball writing it. It only lasts about 5 to 7 minutes. It airs every Friday on In the Moment, which is hosted by Lori Walsh. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun bringing poetry to the airwaves of South Dakota and now North Dakota.
So who are some of your favorite poets? Who have you been influenced by? Or
oh, wow.
What do you remember, you know, from early poetry memories?
Wow, there's just, there's so many. There's so many. I guess the first name that flares up in my imagination with that question is Seamus Heaney. He's a Northern Irish poet. My mother was born and raised in Northern Ireland, and I'm an Irish citizen, and Seamus Heaney is without question one of the most influential poets of the 20th century. And I returned to him, you know, for inspiration and comfort. And that's my answer right now. If you were to ask me that question an hour from now, Jennifer, I might say someone else entirely.
Did you start writing poetry? Was that the first form that you published in, or was it other forms?
Poetry was the first. Yes, poetry was first. I knew I wanted to be a writer from a young age. And so I turned to poetry because it's so ridiculous. I thought it would be easier. You know, now I realize I started with the hardest genre. You know, it's just shorter. That's the only reason it looks easier. And I thought, you know, in high school, maybe that'd make me look kind of like cool for the ladies, you know, because I wrote poetry. So that's why I started writing poetry, and I had a knack for it. But, you know, burning in my chest was this idea, I really want to be a novelist. And if you had to say choose one genre, I think that would be the genre that I would want to be with. But I enjoy poetry, and I seem to have some talent for it.
Well, I think that's certainly true. Your remark about, you know, poetry making you seem cool reminds me a little of Ted Kooser. He always tells the story about being a teenager who thought that maybe poetry was the way to get the attention of the young women. So, and I don't know whether it worked for him or not. I don't think so, but he's doing quite well now.
He is. That's one of my favorite memories of the book festival is the first time that I met Ted Kooser. I'd been a fan of his work, and then unbelievably, I was on a panel with him. It was like, you know, it was like being allowed to play with the Beatles. I just couldn't believe I was on stage with him, you know?
Ted Kooser, Paul McCartney.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm just some roadie that you allowed on stage, and you know.
Oh, you definitely belonged there, but that leads me to, I wanted to just ask you a couple of questions about South Dakota Festival of Books and book festivals in general, because you know, we're kind of celebrating the kickoff of this very unusual festival this year. You have been a very frequent festival attendee and presenter. What does it mean to you? What do you as a writer get out of it? How does it feed you?
Oh, I love that verb. How does it feed me? I just, and there are a couple of ways that I can answer that, and they're both true. One is, I mean, writing is such a solitary act. I mean, you have this porthole into my office right now. I mean, this is where all of my books are written, all of them. I mean, this one that's just come out, the whole thing was written here. And it's such a solitary, monastic existence being a writer. And then the book comes out, and then suddenly you're in front of people, and you're literally on stage. And it's really wonderful to kind of shift gears and to see how what you've created is affecting people. It's just, you know, whether they like it or they don't like it, or they talk to you and they say, oh, I really like this. This reminded me of this. And I feel like we're holding the book between us, and it becomes this conduit. And I really like that. So there's that aspect of it. And then there's just the other aspect of it, of being with my tribe, you know, to be around other writers where we get to laugh and joke and complain about how writing doesn't go as well as we'd like. And then I meet other writers, you know, and maybe I'd only read their books, and then suddenly I find myself having coffee with them, or, you know, just chatting in a hotel, you know, lobby or something. So it's really a wonderful thing that you have all created. And this is the 17th year, is that right?
18th.
18th, wow.
Yes.
18 years. It's officially an adult.
I hadn't thought of it that way yet.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I mean, I really, really love book festivals, and I've been to a number of them, but there's something special about this one. It's incredibly well organized, but it's really informal at the same time. And it's a wonderful thing to experience as a writer.
Well, we appreciate you coming back all the time, as often as we'll talk about it, right? So
yeah, I just got to keep writing books. So
that doesn't seem to be a problem.
No.
Well, I'm wondering, we're very close to being out of time here, but you mentioned that you might have a few more poems. Do you want to give us one more poem before we say goodbye tonight?
Sure, I will read. It's a 2-page poem. You know, I always want to have something in reserve, so I actually had one just in case you asked. So it's a 2-page poem, and my son loves Harry Potter. In fact, he's rereading, I think for the 3rd time, the Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince right now. So my wife and I did what we always do. We're trying to make him happy. We thought we'd take him to Harry Potter World and, you know, Universal Studios in Florida. And we went there, and his mind was just blown. He loved walking around Hogwarts and all these kind of things. But I said, if we're going to go, I want to go to the Kennedy Space Center because I want to show you these, you know, the rockets and, you know, you can touch the moon. And so this is a poem called Harry Potter World. And the first part takes place in Harry Potter World. And the second part, the next day, is us in the Kennedy Space Center. And it's just basically about our relationship as father and son. Harry Potter World. We took you because Hogwarts is the capital of your imagination. All those posters in your room, all those wands, how you sneak up on me and yell, "Stupefy," when I make poached eggs for breakfast. And so we boarded a Muggle plane to visit a place where young wizards exist and you could drink chilled pumpkin juice. An expensive trip, but it was worth it to see your eyes grow as large as 2 remember-alls when we entered Ollivanders and Honeydukes. As we rode through a Quidditch match and plummeted into the vaults of Gringotts, you focused on the pulsing world before us. I looked to the sides and considered the sorcery of hydraulics and dry ice. The next day, when we visited the Kennedy Space Center, it was my turn to gawk while you carried a wand made out of old vine and dragonheart string. We strolled beneath a Saturn V, that mighty broomstick which lifted us higher than any Nimbus 2000 or Firebolt ever could. As we talked about the Philosopher's Stone, we considered moon rocks encased in glass. And then, together, we placed our fingers on a triangle slice of basalt which once rested on the Taurus Littrow Valley. In that moment, touching a splinter of moon, I wanted to travel into your mind to see the floating candles of your ideas, the magical world that bubbled inside the great hall of your skull. You said nothing as you rubbed the moon, but I felt you lifting away from me, already launching yourself into adulthood, already climbing mile by nautical mile beyond the place where you began. I saw the powerful flame of years carry you up, 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 until you were out of sight, just a voice pulsing out faint messages from the world you'll explore as a man. No longer a boy who reaches for my hand and asks, simply glad for my company, what should we see next, Daddy?
Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. And what a perfect way also to segue into the fact that in addition to your Third Reich talk, you'll be talking about In the Shadow of Dora and space and going to the moon and all of that kind of wonderful imagination. It sounds wonderful. So thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Patrick, to kick things off and start celebrating books with us.
We appreciate
My
all
pleasure.
your work for the humanities. Thanks a lot, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, in addition to attending festival presentations like this one with Patrick Hicks, we invite you this weekend to visit our virtual Exhibitors Hall event on the SDHC Facebook page over the weekend. There you can learn about many authors, publishers, and cultural organizations, and you can win prizes in the process. And here to tell you more about this is the one staff member that you haven't met. She is one of our temporary, very special helpers that gets all sorts of things done for us very efficiently and accurately. And this is Kendra Brookhausen. Kendra?
Hi, I'm Kendra Brookhausen. I've helped with the Festival of Books for the last few years now, and it's something that I look forward to greatly every year. This year, for our Festival of Books, Exhibitors Hall, we'll be doing an event on Facebook on Saturday. We'll be posting one exhibitor every half hour until we have all of our 19 exhibitors on the event. Also, we have a bingo game with questions about the South Dakota Humanities Council, the Festival of Books, and all of our exhibitors. And all of the answers can be found in their bios or on their websites. And correctly answering 5 in a row for a bingo gets a person's name placed into a drawing for a special prize like the one on my side here. And the answers can be submitted into info@sdhumanities.org in any way possible that you can get it there by 5 o'clock on Monday. We hope that you can stop by and see it. We're really excited for it. Thank you.
And thank you, Kendra. We know that the Exhibitors Hall is perhaps one of the most difficult parts of the festival to replicate in a virtual environment, but there are some really wonderful exhibitors who would hope to be here in person. You can find their information on our website under the Exhibitors tab. You can visit their websites because those are all listed there, and you can go to that Facebook event, and I think you'll find out about some really wonderful authors, publishers, and organizations.
Finally, you can help us by keeping the festival free by making a tax-deductible donation to the South Dakota Humanities Council. You can do this by just visiting our website, sdhumanities.org, and click the Donate button. This festival would not be possible without the generous support of the numerous organizations and individuals who have already donated and are acknowledged on the back cover of the festival guide and also on our website. Now we will hear from another one of those sponsors, SDSU's Jerome J. Lohr College of Engineering.
Hello, my name is Bruce Berdanier, and I'm Dean of the Jerome J. Lohr College of Engineering at South Dakota State University. And I just wanted to send a quick welcome message to congratulate the South Dakota Humanities Council on another successful Festival of Books this year. You may wonder why the College of Engineering would be interested in a Festival of Books. And I just want you all to know how proud we are of all of our graduates and of our national recognition and accreditation. But we also hear consistently from all of our employers, and we're well aware that our students, when they graduate, have to realize the impact of their work and their designs on a global society. They have to have good leadership skills, and they have to synthesize a lot of information that's not technical, that comes from social and economic and historic sources. And they have to be able to be great writers and make good presentations. So we realize that a lot of these capabilities and attributes that our graduates have come from their experiences in the humanities. So I'm just very pleased to be a sponsor of Carson Bond's presentation on October 2nd. And we just want to congratulate all of you at the South Dakota Humanities on another successful Festival of Books. We want you to know that we really appreciate your innovation in this challenging year, and we appreciate your continued outreach to a bunch of engineers. Thank you.
Well, we certainly appreciate the support of the Jerome J. Lohr College of Engineering for supporting the festival. South Dakota State University as a whole has been a great partner. We have received festival sponsorships from the SDSU Office of the President, from the College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, from the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Sciences, and as well as McCrory Gardens and the South Dakota Art Museum. So we appreciate all that SDSU in the various colleges and divisions does for the humanities in South Dakota. And now we are going to go live to the Kokomo Art Gallery in Lemon, South Dakota for a special festival kickoff concert with Eliza Blue and the Wild Violets. Eliza Blue is a Dakota shepherd, writer, and folk singer. In addition to her weekly column, Little Pasture on the Prairie, carried by 11 different print publications, she contributes to South Dakota Public Radio and Prairie Public Radio with her monthly series, Postcards from the Prairie. Her byline has appeared in many regional and national publications, including the New York Times, and her first book, Accidental Rancher, a collection of essays about her transition from urbanite to ranch wife and mother, came out just this year. Tonight, Eliza is treating us to a combined reading and concert with some of her friends. Please welcome Eliza Blue and the Wild Violets.
Hello, can you hear us?
Hello.
Yes,
Yes.
hi.
Wonderful. Well, we are so excited to be here and be part of this event. And as you mentioned, so we are in the Kokomo Gallery in beautiful downtown Lemon. So if for those who don't know, this is the gallery of the sculptor John Lopez, who is world renowned and has sculptures really all over the planet. But we are lucky enough to have him based here. So we kind of thought we could hit two birds with one stone here, share some music and some literature with you, but also some art. So we're actually going to start out, or I guess I'm going to start out reading a little bit, and then I've got my band with me, so they're going to play some songs. We're going to play you some songs too. But so this book, Accidental Rancher, came about because I came to South Dakota not planning to stay. It was going to just be a temporary adventure, and I had up to that point I had spent most of my adulthood touring as a musician, and so it was a little bit of a surprise when I suddenly found myself living on a ranch and eventually becoming a rancher's wife, and now we have 2 little kids. But so this book is a series of essays. We've arranged them seasonally rather than chronologically. So this is actually an essay I wrote in 2019, but the events of the essay took place 6 years ago, which many of you will remember. October 6 years ago was when the Atlas storm hit, and that was fairly soon into the time that I'd been here. So this essay is called "And Atlas Shrugged." 6 years ago, in early October, our region experienced a devastating blizzard. This was back when I was a single girl and new to homesteading. I was living in a small trailer house several miles down a rarely traversed gravel road. At the time, our county was enjoying its 15 minutes of internet notoriety for being the furthest place from McDonald's in the contiguous United States. I was in no way prepared for the adventure I was undertaking, but never one to shy away from extremes. I was undaunted by the remoteness. I had reached a crossroad in my life. I was 35 years old, and since leaving my parents' home at 18, I'd never lived in the same house for more than 2 years, often not even the same city. What began as youthful seeking and a quest for self-knowledge had begun to feel more like a bad habit. I didn't know exactly what I was running from, but it was clear I was running from something. Then, just a few months after moving into the trailer, I went to bed one night with a hard rain slapping against the window panes and woke to find the whole world white. It was 3 days before it stopped snowing, 5 days before my ancient Subaru could limp its way to the main road, and 3 weeks before my little trailer once again had electricity. I had it easy compared to most, though, because my livestock totaled 3 sheep and 7 hens, all of whom I'd locked into the chicken coop the first terrible night of the storm. Many of my neighbors lost dozens of animals because even seasoned ranchers weren't expecting the sudden, record-breaking turn the weather took. The aftermath of the storm was not without its hardships for me, however. In addition to no lights and no heat, no electricity meant no pump to run the well and no phone. Fortunately, the trailer was equipped with a gas stove, and once the storm passed, I melted bucket after bucket of snow from the drifts outside my door, which I filtered for drinking. Using melted snow to flush the toilet and do the washing was more time-consuming. It takes a lot of snow to make a little water, I discovered. The 5 days without human contact were also surprising. I didn't have a cell phone then, which didn't matter because there wasn't cell service at the trailer anyway. But no internet, no radio, no landline meant no email, no voicemail, no Facebook Messenger, no way to check in with the outside world at all. At first, this was stressful. But as the reality of my situation settled in and I realized there was nothing I could do until the snow melted and the road was cleared, an unprecedented quiet descended upon my usually frenetic mind. And that quiet felt a little like freedom. I could write a lot more about the 5 days I spent stranded in that rented trailer, but my most vivid memory from that time was the last day before the plows made it to my road. There were still 6-foot drifts around the house, but the day was warm. I had just shoveled the last of the snow from the front porch, and I lay down on the rough boards to gaze up at the round bowl of cloudless blue sky. My own voice, unbidden, whispered into the quiet, "You are ready." In just over a month's time, I would find myself falling in love with my future husband and the father of my children. And those first adventures in homesteading would turn out to be the beginning of a new chapter in my life. But I didn't know any of that then. All I knew at that moment was I felt easy in my own skin for maybe the first time ever. I knew I was ready to stop running. I was ready to be home. In the fields of... I just started that in the wrong key. It was going to be such a beautiful and seamless transition. But I guess that's not how I roll, so. In the fields of Holland, the water waits in the grass for the light to get cold. We are traveling far, we are traveling fast. We'll be in Berlin before another day has passed. Remember how it happened with the movie soundtrack. Banjos in the background, we're too old to turn back. They sang burn your records, they sang burn your records, and you said, I have seen the world and it is sad. On the back of my hand, your fingers sat, and it echoes in the vast church of my chest. There's no words to speak, so I do not ask. We'll be in Berlin before another day has passed. Remember how it happened with the movie soundtrack. Banjos in the background, we're too old to turn back. And they sang burn your records, they sang burn your records, and you said, I have seen the world and it is sad. Burn your records, they sang 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 burn your records, and you said, I have seen the world and it is sad. Yay! So now seems like a good time to introduce the band here. We are Eliza Blue and the Wild Violets, but basically my band, I just stole them from themselves because they play without me as Eclectic Rec. So they are based up here in the Lemon area. They kind of straddle the line between North Dakota and South Dakota, so they tour around a bit in this region. And yeah, and I just love them all, so I convinced them that they should be my band for this, for as long as they'll have me, I guess. But we are going to do another song now called Jenny that I really enjoy playing here in our agricultural region, because this is actually a song I wrote many, many years ago, long before I moved to South Dakota, when all I knew about ranching was things I had read in books. So I wrote this song, and as you'll appreciate while we're playing it, I get a kick out of it now because these are things that I know about firsthand as opposed to things I have read about in books. So. Spend my daylight a hauling hay, hey now, spend my daylight a hauling hay, hey now, drive the horses till the day is done, hey now, till the day is done, hey, till the day is done. Work is hard, it's a heavy load, hey now, work is hard, it's a heavy load, hey now, count the hours till the day is done, hey now, till the day is done, hey, till the day is done. Weather's hot and the creek is dry, hey now, weather's hot and the creek is dry, hey now, Jenny's waiting on the other side, hey now, till the day's done, hey, 'cause the day is done. Spend my daylight a hauling hay, hey now, spend my daylight a hauling hay, hey now, drive the horse till the day is done, hey now, till the day is done, oh, till the day is done. Hey, oh, till the day is done. Hey, till the day is done. Oh, so I have to admit, we've done a couple of live streams, and it is a little bit of a different vibe, obviously, than having, humans listening to you. And so I get this uncontrollable urge to start clapping. But then that's weird to clap for yourself. So then I just, in the past, I've done these silent cheers. Yay! So I feel like maybe it's like the NFL games. We need to get like the canned audience.
Cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, cardboard cutouts. But we can get the silent roar. Or not silent, the hushed roar. The clap track, exactly.
Stadiums full of people.
So on that note, as you can probably tell, I am very influenced by folk music, and that's kind of what I grew up listening to, and to this day what I gravitate towards. So a lot of my songs, such as the one I just played, are influenced by folk music, but probably one of the things I love best about folk music is the fact that many of these songs are alive, and they continue to grow and change and evolve over time, which is just a beautiful thing to be a part of. So we're going to play a song now called Red Apple Juice that I first heard from Spider John Kerner, and so his version is kind of the version that I'm basing my version off of, but there are a lot of people that do this song, and yeah, and I've kind of added to it, and now the Wild Violets are going to add to it a little more, so this is our version of Red Apple Juice. I ain't got no use for your red apple juice. Ain't got no honey, baby, now. Ain't got no honey, baby, now. I ain't got no use for your red rocking chair. Ain't got no honey, baby, there. I ain't got no honey, baby, there. And the crowd goes wild. So we were just discussing this, how dependent we all are on our phones these days. My phone no longer has the ability to turn off sound, though, so I don't have it. So I'm not sure how close we are getting to when we wanted to take a short break. 6:45. All right, cool. All right, well, then we'll do one more song before we take a little, or before we have our moderators break in. So. Follow me. So this song is pretty special to me because, again, working now, you know, my main job in addition to being a mom is working on a ranch, and being part of this ecosystem and living on the grasslands. It's never been more obvious to me how important it is that we take care of this land that we are stewarding, and that not just take care of it, but continue to work to become part of the ecosystem rather than trying to, you know, get the ecosystem to work for us, figuring out how we can work for it. So species diversity is something I think a lot about, and you don't hear that a lot in folk songs, but This is our grassland diversity folk song. It's called Follow Me. Follow me, follow me, follow me to the wild prairie, western wheat, needle leaf, plains mullein, sand lily, red leaf sedge, tall blue stem. Follow me, follow me. Barn sparrow, meadowlark, Swainson's hawk, sandpiper, sagebrush vote, prairie dog, stands up tall, stands up tall. Oh, follow me, follow me, oh, follow me to the wild prairie. Oh. Pronghorn elk, silver leaf, prickly pear, watch out there. Oh, follow me, follow me, follow me to the wild prairie. See, it's impossible to resist. All right, but we will let you guys take over here.
All right. Well, thank you, Eliza. Thank you, the Wild Violets. We're just going to speak to you for 5 or 10 minutes. We've got a couple of little polls that we'd like to have the audience participate in. So I'm wondering if we could put up maybe the first of those polls on screen. We want to ask those of you who are in the audience a little bit about what your festival experiences have been. So this first one asks, what's your favorite track at the festival? So if some of you watching would go ahead and go in and vote for your favorite fiction, nonfiction, history, tribal, poetry, children's YA, or writer's support, you can submit those and we'll take a little look at what comes back to us there. Another thing that I would suggest that you might want to do in the chat is I'd love to have some of you who have come to many festivals, maybe put in the chat what some of your favorite memories are. Do you have a favorite experience that you've had at a festival? Was it an author that you met on the street corner and got to have coffee with? Or was it a particularly funny session that you got to see? Or was it someone that you met who likes the exact same books as you do? So we'd love to hear some of those memories in the chat. You can talk back and forth that way, or you can, we might keep some of them in our back pocket and maybe talk about them a little bit later on in the weekend. While we're doing this first poll, I'm going to get some results probably in just a minute or so, but I just wanted to say a couple of things about the rest of the weekend and the rest of the festival. Because for a lot of people, you know, we've said, well, the festival's going to start on this weekend, but it's going to continue throughout most of the month. And, you know, people don't quite understand always how that's going to work. Well, normally, of course, when we have the festival in person, we are entirely condensing the activities into about 4 days from Thursday to Sunday. And we have many, many concurrent events going on. And it's all basically one very condensed event, and then we're done. But we thought that that might be a bit much for screen time in terms of, you know, the fact that we're all spending a lot of time on our screens, many of us for work, and we're all spending a lot more time in most cases on screens in our leisure time as well due to the pandemic and other reasons. So we wanted to spread it out a little bit and also sort of stretch out the festival experience. So tomorrow, we will start again at 10 in the morning. There are 3 writing workshops going on with some great authors, as well as several sessions with authors just talking about their work. So you can still buy tickets to any of those 3 workshops. There's still space in all of them, I think. You can go to our tickets tab and find that out. So we'll start at 10 tomorrow, and we will go all through the day into about 9 o'clock at night. And then on Saturday, we will start again. We will be starting at 9 and we will go till about 9 at night. And then on Sunday, we'll start at noon and we'll go till about 8 in the evening. So pretty regular hour by hour schedule. And then you need to look at the monthly schedule after that. We will have some days 1 event, some days 2, some days 3, scattered out for the next 3 weeks. So you can watch a session on your noon hour one day. You could watch one in the evening another day, maybe listen to Amy Stewart on a Sunday afternoon. So we have a lot of options. So look through those and take a close look at what your options are. We hope you'll join us many times after this. So are we looking at a result of one of our polls here? Oh, it looks like fiction is a pretty strong winner right now out of all of those. So we should probably go in and check what the favorite fiction genres are, but it looks like fiction has most of the rest of them beat, but writer's support has a really good showing, I would say. I wasn't sure that I thought it would go up there. That's something that's really important to us at the festival, though, is that we have ways of helping to support South Dakotans in telling their own stories. I noticed one person asked a question in the comments whether there would be recorded videos for sessions that we miss. And we haven't determined exactly how we're going to archive all of the various videos yet. However, videos like this one that are streaming on Facebook Live, many of those sessions will be streamed on Facebook Live, and those will be available after the fact to watch on the South Dakota Humanities Facebook page. So we have one more poll that I want to have put up. There we are. And this one is, see, I can't quite. Why do you attend the Festival of Books? 4 different possibilities and an all of the above. I wanted to put it in other, but there's not really a very good way of doing that. I'm sure there are some other ideas. So why do you attend? Can I see the chat again? Thank you. It sounds like we're really enjoying the music from Eliza Blue and the Wild Violets. So while you're answering that chat, I just want to remind you again, we'd love to have you consider buying books by some of our presenters from Zanbros in Sioux Falls. They have a festival page built out on their website, on their online store, and they're carrying books by many of our authors, and also Child's Play toys for the children's books. That's one of the best ways that you can support the authors that you really enjoy, is by buying their books and reading them and giving them that support. Oh, wow. All of the above is quite a clear winner here. So it sounds like everybody likes, it's so hard to read from here. Everybody likes seeing their favorite authors, discovering new authors, buying books. I'm surprised buying books doesn't have a little bit more than that. Maybe socializing isn't quite the biggest one there, but well, we're glad you're enjoying the festival and enjoying both finding new authors and returning favorites. I hope that that's something that you maybe will discuss. One difference about a virtual festival is that you don't have the problem, well, maybe it's not exactly a problem, but you don't have the problem that you try to get into a session and it's full, because on the internet, there's almost infinite room. But one thing that people have said in some cases is that they maybe have missed out on a session that was full, but went to a different session and discovered an author that they really loved. So we hope that maybe some of that serendipity can still happen. We have another question that asks about whether it's possible to get signed copies of books. And in most cases, we haven't been able to do that. However, there are some authors who do offer those signed copies through their own personal websites. And I know Zanbros does have some copies that are signed in their selection, but you'd have to check with them to see whether that was available. So that's unfortunately one of the things that we're missing this year, is the opportunity to get those autographs and maybe to fill up your Christmas list that way. But you can still buy the books, and perhaps if you can contact the authors, they might send you a signed book plate. So we can try to help with that whenever we possibly can. All right, so we're close to being ready to going back to Eliza, but is Eliza ready to come back to us? It sounds like she's just about ready.
I hope so, yeah. It's a real treat to have someone who can both share with us what she's written and songs that she's able to join in and play for us. So here we are. There's Eliza and the Wild Violets once more.
All right.
See if they're getting hooked up.
Can you hear us okay?
We can.
Oh, good. All right. Well, for our little second set here, I'm going to start out with a song that's really new because the reason I want to share it, I guess, the because is that we're going through a tough time. The fact that this festival is virtual, I think, is an indication of just how it is right now, which is to say there's a lot of things that are happening that have never happened before, and a lot of unpredictability, and that alone is stressful. If nothing else, it's stressful to not always know what's going to happen next. And the city I lived in before I lived here was Minneapolis, and my mom still lives there, and obviously the events of this summer it was very scary to be far away from her, and I have a lot of dear friends and a lot of musicians that I've played with over the years, all still living there. And so it's been a really a time, I think, of really having to learn to let go, and really having to learn or put into practice those things that we often talk about mindfulness and letting go, and all the sort of whatever your spiritual practice is that you've been maybe cultivating all this time, and now it's like now is when we need to use them. So, and that being said, I mean, there's a lot of division too. There's a lot of anger right now in this country, and it's scary. So I wrote this song. It was partly a meditation. I think, like a lot of writing, and certainly this is true for me as a songwriter, where you come into the process with a question that you don't have an answer for yet. you as the writer or as the songwriter. And so I think this song was both a question to myself and an answer to the question, even if the answer is just, you know, to keep staying open and to keep like looking for the love basically, and looking for the spirit behind what's happening, and as a place to find how we're going to move forward into whatever comes next. So it doesn't really have a name yet. Speak to me of history, a whispering, a reckoning, the prairie grass plowed underneath, the roots would cut and the cuts were deep, and where you are, I have not been, and I don't know how the story ends, but I'm listening, and I'm trying to hear when the Spirit speaks, beckons at the door. Yeah, I'm listening, and I try to hear when the Spirit speaks, beckons at the door. So let's gather seeds, cross the threshold stone, and we'll see what grows. 'Cause we're not alone. All right. Well, we're going to take a little minute after that to read a piece I wrote that's called Stillness. It's evening, so the light is shimmering in rhythm with the breeze sifting through the windbreak of ash trees west of the house. There is a whole canopy of birds up in those leaves, slipping easily from one branch to the next. We hear them through the open window. Next to me, my old dog snores and soft sighs, as does a cat curled in the chair beside us. The daylight hours are getting shorter, though we still have days of long heat ahead. And I am late starting supper. On the wall, a clock ticks, and for a second, it is the loudest sound I hear. When I was a kid, I remember hearing adults discuss how time passes more and more quickly the older you get. I wasn't the type to question authority, so I took it as a proven fact. Like growth spurts and falling in love, time passes faster as you grow up. But I was still a child. The summer after second grade unfurled so slowly, I forgot what going to school was even like. By the time we reached August, I felt it had been summer for more than half my life. My whole world was skinned knees and scabbed up bug bites, putting bathing suits on in the morning still damp from the night before, and the sweet jangle of the ice cream truck's bells in the glowing heat of late afternoon. When it was finally time to start third grade, I was ready. The summer after third grade went faster. I remember August coming, and I was stunned. It's starting already, I thought to myself. Time is going faster. It wasn't many more years before I came to believe that the 4th of July marked the end of summer, the weeks after the holiday going so quickly I could feel the days slipping through my fingers like the sand of castles I meant to build, then ran out of time and didn't. Apparently, there is a newly diagnosed, or at the very least newly named, social phenomena called fear of missing out, or FOMO. Social psychologists are documenting this tendency, linking it to the rise of technology and social media, and theorizing that it is the result of our increased ability to know what everyone else is doing all the time. Really? Because I've been experiencing it since I first realized that time was indeed going faster, and that was back when phones still had long, curly cords. My version of FOMO took the form of a nervous restlessness. I moved a lot. I traveled even more. I constantly asked myself questions like, what will I wish I'd done when I'm laying on my deathbed? It wasn't, all things considered, a bad way to make decisions. However, it also wasn't very much fun. How enjoyable can you find your life when you are constantly envisioning it from the cotton swaddling of the bed you will die in? It gave everything a sepia tint, and I'd find myself waxing nostalgic about events that were still happening. My life was a never-ending bucket list. Perhaps that is what eventually attracted me to a more rural setting, the idea that country life moves at a slower pace. When they found out my time in South Dakota wasn't an extended vacation, friends from the city worried I would be bored. That's kind of the point, I wanted to say. But boredom is not part of the lexicon of ranch life. On any given day, there are more jobs left unfinished than I have years left of life. The days pick up speed as I move through them, the kaleidoscope of chores shifting with the season, the list of things that need to be done growing longer. Today, we were invited out to an acquaintance's ranch where, from beneath the soft dirt and thick shale, they were unearthing the bones of a dinosaur. 66 million years have passed since those bones were housed in flesh and moved by breath. Yet the animal itself was probably only 25 years old when it died, younger than I am now, younger than I'll ever be again. 66 million years is an abstraction. 25 years is not. And that is what the other thing about life. It only goes, at least as far as we can discern, in one direction, which is terrifying and strange. What an odd quirk of human nature, then, that we spend so much time contemplating the passage of time. Contrary to what I believed as a child, the clock on the wall ticking off the minutes does not change its pace, and it never has. So I am sitting here in what remains of this day, breathing in and breathing out, listening to my old dog snore, to the gray cat purr, and the birds calling out merrily while the wind sighs its sweet old song, letting it be enough that it is warm and still light. I'm thinking about shedding that old query, what will you wish you'd done when you are on your deathbed? I'm thinking about shedding the past tense altogether. I'm thinking about being here now, in the first dusky breath of evening, and now, and now. I'm thinking about being here now till the stars rise bright as diamonds. So we are going to play next for you a song that is that I wrote with a man whose name is Christian Begeman, and he is actually a really brilliant photographer and does a little writing on the side. And he had gone to a cemetery an old pioneer cemetery, East River. And while he was contemplating sort of things similar to what I was just discussing in that essay, a little sparrow popped out and landed on the fence right in front of him and kind of startled him out of his revelry. And anyway, inspired him to, he wrote down some words about that and sent them to me. And so I turned it into a song. It's called Song Sparrow. Pioneers laid to rest upon the hills of prairie grass, ever looking to the west. I walked there today, faded names along the way, faded memories in the stone, not my own. From the depth I thought she came, a song sparrow feathered plain and flew away to sing her song. When they gathered grass, scattered seeds as they rushed past, whispered none of this will last. So if you got a song to sing, sing for the comfort that it brings, and for the joy, for the joy, for the joy. Lift up your voice, my friends, for the comfort that it brings, and for the joy, for the joy, for the joy. I got a song to sing, sing for the comfort that it brings, and for the joy, for the joy, for the joy. Lift up your voice, my friends, for the comfort that it brings, and for the joy, for the joy, for the joy, for the sorrow and for the joy, for the joy, for the joy, for the joy. All right. See, you miss it, don't you? I keep every single time, I'm like, I'm going to play it cool. I'm not going to do a silent cheer. And every single time, I want to so bad. All right, so we're going to play, the next song we're going to play is actually the title track from my last album, which is a couple of years old now, and it is called South Dakota, comma, 1st of May. And it is a song about the first day of May from the first year I spent in South Dakota, where it snowed on that day. And I was in Minnesota before I came here. I'm no stranger to cold weather or snow in May, but for some reason it was just, I don't know, it just was a very bleak day, and I definitely did have the feeling, what have I done? Yeah, so this song, I very rarely play it this time of year, because as we are about to launch into winter, I feel like maybe no one needs to be reminded of what's about to happen to them. Really, you should only play this song, either very close to the 1st of May or in the deep, deep heat of summer, when it is not liable to make people question their life choices. South Dakota, 1st of May, we sinks across the yard. The corner cold frames frosted over the sky is gray. Sounds like oceans overhead and still. It's only almost spring. Last night's snow clings to the dirt road. The sky still gray. In the ditch, a dead bird's black wing lifts. It's waving in the wind. Sounds like oceans overhead and still. It's only almost spring. It sounds like oceans overhead. It sounds like oceans overhead. And will the birds return and sing? Turn the endless winter into spring. Will the birds return and sing? Turn this endless winter into standing still and always leaning to a wind that sounds just like waves. Standing still and always leaning to a wind that sounds just like waves. It's only almost spring. It's only almost spring. It's only almost spring. Oh, I got a little tickle in my throat. I almost didn't make it through there. Well, how are we doing for time? 7:18. All right. Well, we are going to do, excuse me, I really have a little tickle there. We are going to do a tune called Let There Be Light. Ooh. Anybody have a joke they want to tell really quick? Judy, any accordion jokes?
Oh, Todd's got all the accordion jokes. Go ahead, go ahead.
What do you throw at drowning accordionist?
What?
Their accordion.
Come on, Mason. Stop cheating the outline, right?
So I just realized I have not properly introduced the band, which, considering that we're almost at the end, now is the time to take advantage. So this is Todd and Judy Larson on guitar and accordion, respectively, and this is Mason DeWin, who yesterday had to miss rehearsal because he was fighting fire. So in addition to playing drums, he's also a volunteer firefighter. And I just wanted to say thanks for your service, sir, because you had a long day and then had to work all day today and then came to join us. So thank you. And thank you guys too, Todd and Judy, for coming. And their son Eli is our sound man. You can't see him, but he's back there doing the tech stuff. So thank you to Eli too. So it sounds like we're going to do we'll finish up with this song and then I'll, because it sounds like that's all my voice is going to let me do. We'll finish up with this song and then I'll maybe, if we have time, read the poem that is the epilogue to the book. So, all right, we're gonna see how it goes. Feel free to take over if I start coughing or something. This is a song that also I sort of have been working on for years, and as with many of the songs I write, it's, writes itself and then unwrites itself. And sometimes it seems like these songs, they aren't quite ready to be born. So this one just finally is finished, I think, and it's one that it's been nice to play. It kind of has offered me solace. I hope it offers you solace as well. grasses wave, the sods are not broken. I'm weaving a wire around all life stolen. I long for words that can be spoken. Search the field for scraps and tatters. The sparrow's flown but left her feathers against the loom of love. I've shattered everything that I thought mattered. Let there be light, 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 let there be light. Been so long since I could breathe out. It's hard to say how that would feel now. Mistakes I made as smooth as arrows, wounding deep my anxious breath. Let there be light, 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 let there be I've waited so long, but I wait longer. This kind of pain ain't solved by hunger. Hold me close, oh, hold me closer, hold me closer, hold me closer. And let there be light, 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 let there is light. Yay, I had to yay for that one. I really had to.
Accordions aren't just good as something to,
jokes.
yeah, the butts and jokes. Something to drop into the ocean.
So do we have, should I do one more short thing? It looks like you're setting up like you're ready to go there.
We'd be glad to hear your poem.
Yes.
All right, well now I'm not going to be able to find, like, oh, it's right here. It's right here at the end of the book. All right. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to the South Dakota Festival of Book for having us, and to the Humanities Council. And then my biggest thank you is always to my husband, who this book was dedicated to. So this poem is for him too. They tinned the red barn 50 years ago, then again before the last century turned over, covered the old windows with plastic but left the door white. That door looks dingy now, matches the snow mixed with mud and dung. The roof's peak leans crooked above the fence line's edge. That is until the eastern sky comes and paints it clean and glowing, pearls it till it gleams, hangs it like a bright window against the dark sky. Then, pulled free from the past, like fish from hooks, like gold from dross, every angle tells its truth. And I, standing by the back door, coffee cooling in my cup, babies in the kitchen calling, "Mama, Mama," can say, I have known love, and it looks just like the view from here.
I think we can give you the round of applause for that.
Lovely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Eliza Blue, and thank you, Wild Violets. It was a wonderful evening to have you bringing us music, bringing us poetry, and bringing us stories. We appreciate all that you're doing to help get the festival off to a wonderful start. So thank you, everyone else, too, for attending tonight's kickoff celebration and concert. We hope to see you tomorrow, starting at 10 o'clock a.m. Central Time, and then again on Saturday, Sunday, and throughout the next 3 weeks for more great festival events.
Thank you for coming. We didn't